I would like to call the meeting of the Camarillo Library Board to order. Can we do a roll call?
Trustee Tremblay? Present. Trustee Kildee?
Here.
Trustee Craven?
Here.
President Pro Tem Mulchay?
Present.
President Santangelo?
Here. Mr. Tremblay, would you lead us in the pledge?
Certainly be happy to. Place your right hand over your heart. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any amendments to the agenda?
No amendments.
I don't have any speaker cards. Is there anybody that would like to address the library board? Okay, do I have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
So move.
Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. We don't have any, oh no, we do have departmental.
Yes, Madam Chair. Mr. Apodaca, the library director, is here to give the activities report.
Hear me? Oh, here we go. Hello. Well, it's an honor to be in front of you to talk about all the work the library's got going on and what we're doing. If you refer to the library activity report, I'll begin to discuss the newsletter. So the library newsletter, we're working on basically a revision, a format that would hopefully have improved public impact and a better return on investment for the library patrons. We've had a lot of success recently connecting with our advertisement partners. This is the city scene here with our local department. Pleasant Valley Rec and Park District has been a great help, and then also the Pleasant Valley School District. They provided a lot of great information and insights as to how their audiences are consuming information. So in using that, I would anticipate the newsletter will go through a revision. Attached to the agenda, there was a template, so I'm not sure if you had a chance to kind of see what that looks like, and hopefully if you had any comments or discussion, now would be a good time to kind of talk about that, I would guess. And basically for next month, I would hope to get you a more formal report of the costs associated and hopefully the impact measures that we would have in such a revision.
So at a following meeting, we will bring a more formal report, as Mr. Apodaca stated, and with the template of the newsletter and some other ideas, and we'll bring you costs as well, so we can give you a recommendation on how to move forward with the newsletter. And at that time, we'll take further comment. But if you do have any input that you'd like to give us, we surely would like to take it tonight. But again, we will be bringing this item with additional detail later.
Anybody have comments?
Actually, quick.
Go ahead.
So the 4 years of Latin that I took in high school, I'm kind of rusty, but I had trouble sledding through the Latin. But I tried. I want you to know.
Yeah,
on the
A
draft
for
sample
effort.
that you gave us.
I had a conversation about this as well. This is placeholder text.
I know.
Right,
I know.
and so we're looking at it like, okay, what does it say?
I'm giving you a hard time, Mr. Apodaca, but in all seriousness, I take it that the way you would do this then is in terms of the title text and the sections, you would be discerning the most important events that are coming up. Is that pretty, or an important
Yes.
announcement? Is that how you?
Yes.
And preferably in English rather than Latin, but we'll get to that.
We'll work on that English
Yeah.
translation, definitely. No, yeah, I think what we're noticing is a crunch time happening. The current newsletter goes out in 2-month intervals, so 2-month chunks. Every 2 months we're having to plan this newsletter, get it out for revisions, drafts, and then over to the printer. Sometimes it's a 3 or 4 month lead time that goes into it. And as it goes, just logistically, it's very difficult to keep up with the changes that might happen to an event. And like you had mentioned with highlighting different areas, I think that's something that in looking at best practices, especially what the school district had kind of put forth for us, is they are using a platform, it's online, called Peach Jar. That's how parents are getting advertisements at home. And really, too many pages is too much, in essence, for what their platform requires. So we really do need to work to condense that down. That being the case, we would want to pull out those things we want to highlight. And it's not always events. It could be services that we have. We have a lot of exciting online platforms that I feel get a little buried in what we currently offer.
So these will be, in essence, these will be the leads. For what it's worth, I like the format. So once it comes out in English rather than Latin, I can give you more specific feedback. But I do like the formatting and the layout for what it's worth.
Thank you for that feedback.
Any other questions? So is this, the idea of this is that it would be a mailer, or?
That's what we're looking at. So currently, different printing houses might have different expectations when it comes to that mailer. There is a bulk mailing program that exists where we could hit Camarillo households. Really, it's weighing that cost against what we currently do now. The quotes that we're currently receiving are a little all over the map, so we're going to work to kind of get those all into one document. So hopefully when you go to review it, you can kind of see what money goes in and then what product comes out.
My comment is, if it's a mailer, I like that the back side is like a calendar, because what I do when I get something like this is it just goes on my refrigerator and I can see everything. So I
Yes,
think it's useful in that way.
I think that was a big feedback we had gotten from the school district, was the average parent or caregiver might print this out and put it on their fridge, that kind of thing. And that's what we would hope that would happen in this events listing. So thank you for that feedback. For that to happen in a mailer, especially the bulk mailer program, we're learning that it needs to kind of all fit on one sheet of paper. That has been a bit of magic we're having to figure out at the moment.
Well, let me just say that sometimes you do need lists for all of the children's programs and things like that, because there's so many of them, that highlighting one or two, for instance, the summer program, there are just so many throughout the week that it would be difficult, I think, to and with the young people's programs, it might be difficult to keep it all on one page.
Yes, I agree. That's been a real crunch point. From what we can tell, the list of events currently is going out in a city scene format, and basically we get a section of the city scene, thankfully.
Right.
And we're able to list a lot of the reoccurring events. But I think what you're highlighting is, and even maybe a past question was, do we still have regular story times?
Right.
And sometimes those get lost in these big tiles. So again, yeah, I think it's a balance of the layout.
And so if you're going to have one page, this won't work, because you've got to have 1/3 of one side dedicated to addresses.
Yes, another bit of feedback that we heard about from City Scene, at least, was that maybe entertaining having an adults listing and then a youth listing, and breaking that up so that one can go over to the school district easily that has that front and back listing, so that it's not a mixture of content.
Right.
And that might be an example of a way to make it more direct. Yeah, but I appreciate that. I think you're hitting the nail on the head.
I guess I get bulk rate things from different organizations, and they're not limited to one page. Is there a difference in postage if you have 2 full pages that are folded?
In a booklet style?
Like this, or like this? It goes by weight. I mean, I'm not...
It goes by weight. As I understand, the stock of paper is what's important in the weight.
Yeah.
So I think but still that would kind of mean one sheet of paper just folded differently. So if we were to have 2 sheets of paper, I'm not exactly sure.
It should fit into the
weight.
minimum weight. If you go with a lesser quality paper.
Yes,
I mean,
I
you don't have to have city scene quality paper to get information out every month.
Right. I think, yeah, that's exactly what we're looking at, is where this is a sturdy mailer that could stand on its own on a hardy stock. Having more of that booklet or folded brochure approach just means a lighter weight paper. But those are those quotes that are out there now. Yeah, we're investigating different areas. We know that City Scene is currently going through an RFP process for its own mailers, and that's going to inform a little bit about what we do as well.
That's all.
Mr. Moshe?
Yeah, Mrs. Craven got one of my two questions in regards to its design, if it is a mailer, and then where you reserve the space for the mailing addresses and stuff like that. The other one, so what we're looking at is specifically the proposed design for the mailer.
Yes.
Would this similar templated style be used through other channels as well? Is that what's anticipated?
Yes, that would be the goal. I would love to have a single source type document so that one version of child events or children-friendly events is the same across different channels. And I think that's really what we're weighing out, is that how people are consuming that information might be a little differently on the school side of things than it is in our, what we would traditionally do is attempt to insert it into a local paper or something like that. And it's just how that is consumed seems to be a little different. I think the calendar side of it is one angle, which is different than that more booklet or folded brochure style. But it would be nice to have a core source list that we're building on here.
To that, and you kind of touched on it, I was going to ask about, you do have a multitude of channels to market and to communicate through,
Yes.
but also to different audiences. My question was going to be whether or not you guys anticipated taking this templated design style and tailoring it to each of those respective markets, if you wanted, those different populations, depending upon which channel you utilize. So if this design is going to middle school kids through PVSD, then there's clearly certain events that you want to highlight because it only appeals to them. Anything from the Rush Fisher Business School or business program isn't going to appeal to middle-aged kids. But whereas if you send this to a general audience, if you're sending this out to the entire city of Camarillo, all the different residents, then maybe there is some potential inclusion for something like that.
Yes.
So I would encourage you to look at how you can, without it becoming overly burdensome, but how you can leverage a similar template design, but tweak it to kind of maximize,
Yes.
communicating to that core audience through all the multiple channels.
Yeah, if I could add anything to that, it would be Russell Fisher Business Collection having that different audience. What we're noticing from any surveys that are offered in events, that the newsletter is not the source of how people are hearing about those events. In that case, our website, social media is the key. So in that way, the newsletter type approach is a little bit dated for that audience, if that makes sense.
Yep.
But it is helpful for when we go and attend chamber events and things like that to have something to distribute. But that's an excellent point. And really, we need to target areas like senior living facilities, and they all sort of have their own needs, I guess, is what we're learning. Yeah, thanks for the feedback, too.
Absolutely, thank you.
Yeah.
We're good? Okay, want to go on?
Yeah, well, that is a very nice discussion. We appreciate the feedback. I think it's going to make our newsletter a lot stronger moving forward. Okay, so to quickly, I guess, run through these points for you guys. The library policies, just wanted to give a quick update that suggested changes were brought before policy committee, or at least will be brought before them for review and recommendation to the library board. That is really just to keep our policies timely and more relevant to our current needs. So be on the lookout for that. For collection and materials, this new fiscal year, we're ushering in a new service that helps us judge the impact of our print and digital resources. It's a product called Library IQ that Library Systems and Services is putting into place, and we're very proud to have championed this idea, and we're doing a lot of the work right now in our Camarillo Library collection. A lot of it is just drilling down into the data sets to find out who is checking out what. And there's a really nice figure called turnover that this is revealing, which is how long something stays on the shelf without going anywhere. And that's really revealing. It, on one hand, is very nice to have all of these great books on the shelf when you walk in, and it looks very nice, but that kind of implies that nobody's got them checked out. So we're learning how to market things a little bit better and judging that turnaround time. So that's very exciting, and we could go into more detail possibly with administrative services about maybe a quarterly collection review or whatever that we would like to be able to drill into really how well our online services are doing. For book bags, in fact, I had brought a sample. We have some tote bags available. These are very high quality. They're available at the library front desk for $10. There's a backstory to it. This is a piece of community art. It was created back in a fundraising effort in 2007 with the construction of the new building. Since then, they had been on sale at City Hall and different businesses. And to kind of boost that, we're thinking, well, let's put them for sale at the library. So you can come purchase one for $10. Really, it's a match system happening. $5 goes to that fundraising effort, and then the remaining $5 goes to the parent of the high school student who had designed this then. And yeah, it's a nice, innovative way to connect with the community. So check it out if you haven't already. And then quickly to review some of the other changes that we had. This is an area of concern, I would say, for our patronage and probably the community at large. In response to some patron feedback and complaints that we received about smoking on library grounds, June 26th, there was a study session. City staff had provided the City Council overview of municipal codes regulating smoking at the library facility, meaning on the outside of the building, including the parking lot. And it was decided that effective July 1st, so starting now, staff will begin implementing 1044 of the municipal code. It's prohibiting smoking at the library, again, including all of the exterior parts of the property. As a part of the implementation, we need to post signage. Staff is going to work on removing some of the existing ashtrays that exist out there, and then work to educate the public a little bit about what's happening. This is kind of a 30-day soft period here, so starting in August is when we would really begin enforcing the smoking code. Okay. And then some upcoming events. Wacky Wednesdays, we have them, of course, every Wednesday. We have 2 showings, one at 10, one at 2. They fill up, is what I'll say. So it's been excellent and an awesome launch to our summer reading club. And then to highlight a Russell Fisher Business Collection event, we have a guest speaker, local entrepreneur Claire Biglio, coming to talk about creating the business in life that you love and how to make money doing it. So that's kind of exciting for us. As an anecdote, for the last Wacky Wednesday event we had, a parent had stopped me and said this was the best library event they had ever been to. And that was wonderful to hear and kind of reminds us what we're doing. And that's all that I had for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? I have a question.
Yeah.
Can you explain what Wacky Wednesday is?
Yeah, Wacky Wednesday, from what I can tell, is
It's fun.
Fun. And it definitely is wacky. We have a lot of people in the building. Library opens at 10, events at 10. A lot of the parents, caregivers, families, they line up outside and go straight into the community room. It's been the consistent event that we offer throughout our summer reading program. We're doubling up on our Wacky Wednesdays with something called Throwback Thursdays. So with support from the friends, really we're able to pull back successful events that we had last summer and put them on in addition to that. And we've heard a lot of good feedback. Maybe families might have missed one last summer or just wanted to see them again. We've been able to pull that in. So Wednesdays and Thursdays, parking lot's a little full for us.
Basically, though, it's a children's program where they have a puppeteer, a balloon person, one of them is a singing group, and California Joe is a Throwback Thursday because he's been here for years.
There you go.
But it's things like that for kids.
All kinds of performers, that's right. The really popular event we had was an African dance troupe. And, so they tend to get loud and have a lot of fun.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
No legal items? Comments from staff? Nobody? Okay. Okay, we'll go ahead and adjourn.
And I'm going to call the meeting of the Camarillo Sanitary District Board to order. Please let the record reflect that all board members are present. Do we have any amendments to the agenda?
No amendments.
And do we have any public comments? Would anyone like to speak before the Camarillo Sanitary District? All right, we're going to close public comment. We're going to move on to the consent calendar.
Move the approval?
I have a motion and a second.
Mr. Chair, I intend to vote. I'll vote yes on the consent calendar, but could it be noted for the record that I'll abstain with respect to item A?
Absolutely noted. All right, so I have a motion and a second. Please vote. That passes 5-0 with Mr. Tremblay abstaining from item A. We're going to move on down to departmental. And do we have a staff report?
Yes, thank you. This item is regarding the Regional Water Quality Control Board settlement offer, and this has to do with exceedances in water quality standards from the effluent at the Camarillo Sanitary District wastewater reclamation plant. The plant effluent is continuously monitored and tested for compliance with regulatory water quality requirements, and in 1999, Senate Bill 709 was voted into law, and that established mandatory minimum penalties in the state water code for exceedances of water quality limits. And those apply to the effluent water quality from the CSD plant. From time to time, exceedances of water quality limits occur in the reclamation plant effluent. And per the water code, the Regional Water Quality Control Board issued a settlement offer to the district dated May 28th of 2019 for 29 water quality exceedances that have occurred between February of 2018 and April of 2019, so 2 months over a year. Those exceedances include 2 for chlorine residual, 4 for cyanide, 2 for nitrate, 2 for nitrate nitrite, and 16 for Biz-2 ethylhexyl phthalate, which they'll just call Biz-2 for short. There is further explanation of the exceedances and resulting actions taken by staff described in the agenda report. And at this time, the action is staff is recommending the district accept the settlement offer and submit payment of $3,000 for each exceedance per the mandatory minimum penalties code, totaling $87,000 to the Regional Water Quality Control Board. That concludes my report. Be happy to answer any questions.
Questions, Mr. Tremblay?
Mr. Klotz, I'm just going to start my questions by just indicating that representing several sanitary districts, receipt by the city of mandatory minimum penalties is not unusual. I want to clarify, it doesn't mean that the city is not a good actor. These MMPs, as they will call them for short, are levied all the time by the regional board. I have my own theory as to why that's the case, but in any event, it's not unusual to receive that. But 2 things that I noted in the staff report, and the first one question is this. With respect to the chlorine residual exceedances, and I've had the misfortune of actually litigating this issue on chlorine residual exceedances in front of a regional board, can you tell me, the staff report says that changes to the dechlorination process have been made. Can you tell me what those specific changes were? Were they equipment focused?
Yes, equipment focused. So,
From what to
I'll
what?
shed a little bit more light on that. And if you read in the listing of the exceedances for the chlorine residuals, instantaneous max. Essentially, if for any instant in time you go over the 0.1 microgram or milligrams per liter limit, it registers as an exceedance. It doesn't take much to do that. The plant normally runs without that happening on a normal basis. It's a rare occasion. And what happened here, a couple different things twice, and this was back in early 2018. We have power backup on the measuring and dosing equipment out there.
Okay.
And one of those batteries had gone low and wasn't able to back up and perform the dosing. So one of the things that we've changed in our operations is checking and making sure the batteries, we have fresh batteries and they're fully charged, and that backup battery power supply is there all the time.
So the solution is a more periodic check of the backup batteries?
Correct. Yep. For that instance, the other instance had to do with we have redundancy in quite a bit of operations at the plant.
Right.
One of them being the dosing for chlorination and dechlorination, and one of the other exceedances was due to the backup pump. It failed. So we have replaced that backup pump. So our again, regular checking of our redundancies at the plant. Okay. And ensuring that this doesn't occur on a regular basis, which is indicative of, after the next year or so through the listing, we haven't had a residual chlorine exceedance since then.
Okay, good. Then it sounds like those fixes those corrections have been successful. The other question I had and a concern is on the bis ethyl hexyl phthalate exceedances. A lot of waste POTWs are going through this right now. What do you think, if any, is the future with respect to that? Because we've got so many dischargers in the plastics and foam manufacturing processes that it's really hard to pinpoint any issue. Do you see any changes ahead for us in that?
Yes. So and it's the kind of thing that takes quite a bit of effort to dial in some of the treatment processes that we can change or improve. We're looking at different additives, and so we got to be very careful with that so it doesn't upset the cart in some other area. But we have spent quite a bit of time on the tracking side of things out in the field to try to pinpoint, if we can, where this is coming from. That has been unsuccessful to date. It's a mix, like as you mentioned, numerous industries. And from time to time will discharge, and their quality changes over time.
Yeah.
So we've really included a focus on some, digging deeper into what else can we do on the treatment side of things in the process to help, prevent these exceedances.
Well, I was going to go in a slightly different direction on it, and I'm wondering whether or not there is anything from an industrial discharge permitting standpoint, from an IDP standpoint, in terms of verification and information that we could implement as part of our IDP process. And I understand the treatment side, but I'm wondering, is there anything else additionally you think we might be able to look at in terms of our IDP requirements?
Yeah,
these are all industrial dischargers.
Right.
All I use, right?
Yeah, and we have, as best of our ability, contacted those that we think, based on what their processes are, could possibly be discharging, even maybe unknowns to them, whatever the final quality of their discharge.
Yeah, that's possible.
Happens to have this, in it, and so it gets detected. So we've been reaching out and talking with those possible dischargers, and some of them have some pre-treatment processes in place. Some of them, that's the next step, is what we're continuing to explore, is what additional or new pre-treatment processes we may need to look at implementing into the industrial discharging permit process.
Okay, and that's where I was going with this.
Yeah, so that is an area that we'll need to continue to explore.
Okay, all right, and you'll be exploring it. All right, thank you.
Do I have any other questions?
Move the approval?
I have one follow-up question. How does the testing process work? Are these, because I see that the violations occurred throughout the year. So are these samples being physically taken and then sent to a lab? Are we doing our own testing and then self-reporting? Or are these things that are monitored in real time, and then somehow when a violation occurs, it gets sent off to Sacramento or someone?
Right. Yes to all.
Okay.
It's a big mix depending on what's being tested and how often. Like I mentioned, the chlorine residual is tested on a continuum, always. And so that's where when you have a violation, it's an instantaneous max reading. And then others are monthly. So it's just a wide variation of the constituents that are being tested, all according to state code requirements. We do pull samples I believe nearly 100% or nearly 100% of the samples are pulled by CSD staff. We have contracts, if you recall, the board has approved annual contracts with testing facilities. That's where I'm not, some of them may come pull some of the specific samples. So there are some tests that need to be run by an independent lab that we're not equipped to do. And then quite a bit is run in-house by our lab down there at the plant also.
Okay. And then when it comes to these violations, we've remedied all of them except for the B2, where we're still trying to figure out what the source is from that. So if we were to test, ideally, hypothetically speaking, if we were to test something today, we should be okay with exception of potentially the B2.
That and also the nitrite, we're in process continuing of that replacement of the baffle walls in the aeration basins. So that's ongoing. We may have, hopefully not, the staff has been doing a great job on keeping things going, meeting standards in the condition we are now, but there could be another exceedance on that, on the nitrites.
And do any of these from year to year, saying, looking back several years, are there any trends? Are these kind of, they're just little blips, they come up because of whether it's a process or whether it's equipment that needs to be serviced or replaced? Or...
Right. Yeah, no real significant trends over the years. I mean, you'll see, I don't know if you noticed in the reporting, and I looked it up because I was curious on what's the difference between a chronic or a serious exceedance. And the chronic is, what it insinuates is it's when it's occurred, an exceedance 4 or more times within a 6-month consecutive period. And that was, I think, under the cyanide that was listed there. And that was attributed to essentially the testing process. Some of the additives that are needed to have a test, it was, we needed to switch that. So, you know, apart from that kind of thing, it's more like what you're describing, blips in the process.
Right.
You know, on one hand, sewage effluent is pretty standard of what's coming down the pipe, but it's a very dynamic process that many factors can change what's going on out there. Hence the need to continuously monitor, test, and adjust as necessary.
Okay. Thank you. So, yep, question?
So I would think that the testing is done to key us into when we need to look at repairs or something's not working right. But but we get fined, or are there other ways to monitor how you're doing before you get fined?
Yeah, oh yeah, it's definitely. I mean, that's part of, you're exactly right. Part of our continual testing and monitoring is to keep tabs on the health of the system, if you will. And that's the job of your staff down there that are running the plant, keeping tabs on the system and making adjustments as necessary to keep us in regulation. So I would say the majority of the time that's what's happening, is we're using the testing and the results to keep the system running within standards. And then we've got these instances where, for instance, the baffle wall situation in the aeration basin, that's taken a significant effort to improve that or fix that. You know, we know about that and we're working on it. So definitely, it's we are proactive as much as possible to avoid exceedances. And then this is one of the, since I've been here, I think the previous one, it might have been 9 exceedances over the previous year and a half. And again, a lot of it was a spike in the Biz 2 situation. So it varies.
And is there any routine to how often they decide to make you pay up? Or is it seems like an odd period? A year and 2 months.
Not really. It doesn't seem to be as like paying taxes and that kind of thing, where it's a pretty well standardized period. But it typically is a year or a year and a couple months.
Thanks.
Mr. Tremblay had a question.
Well, I had an editorial comment, actually, but without going into it too far, the regional boards do generate an awful lot of revenue by virtue of these MMPs. And I'm not going to go any farther than that. I think, though, there's 2 things. One is when you're really trying up front to go along and see whether or not there could potentially be any issues, because once there's an exceedance, it's essentially strict liability, and you're on the hook. And that's the difficulty. But again, Camarillo Sanitary is not unlike a lot of other POTWs. I mean, these exceedances occur across the state It's just not unusual. So I just want to make sure people understand that just by virtue of having gone through these, it doesn't mean that the city is a bad actor in any way. In fact, I think I want to compliment staff on being very proactive in trying to get after this and reduce these exceedances absolutely, or minimize them, hopefully down to zero, but minimize them at least to the greatest extent possible. Thanks.
Dave, I have one more question. The Biz 2 exceedance, is that a rather new phenomenon for us?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, just curious. All right, I had a motion.
Second.
And I have a second. Please vote. That passes 5-0. Gets us down to legal counsel. Any items? Any comments from staff? No further comments from staff. Any comments from board members?
I just wanted to say that the CASA Conference, California Association of Sanitation Agencies, their annual conference will be in San Diego, August 21st through 23rd. And it's a great place for education.
Any further comments, board members? Seeing none, I'm going to adjourn this meeting.
I'd like to call the regular city council meeting for July 10th to order, please, and let the record reflect that all council members are present. Are there any amendments to this agenda?
No amendments.
No amendments. You don't have any presentations. We'll get down to item 3, which is consent calendar.
Move the approval.
Second.
There's a motion on consent and a second. Any further discussion, Ms. Tremblay?
Mr. Mayor, just for the record, I vote yes on the consent calendar, but if I could have an abstention recorded for me as to item A, the minutes.
Okay. Please vote. That passes unanimously with the amendments from Mr. Tremblay. Okay, that gets us down to item 4. It's the City Council, Camarillo Council on Aging Citizen Appointment. Do we have a staff report on that? Ms. Madeline?
Yes, so this item follows your item on your last agenda where you approved the increase to the Council on Aging Board to increase the board members from 5 to 7. And this recommendation comes from the Citizen Appointment Committee to fill those 2 new vacancies. And the names were indicated in the agenda report, and I would defer to the Citizen Appointment Committee if they want to make any comments about their recommendations.
Any comments from the committee?
This started because these 2 people seemed very eager to do something and to help, and we were very limited by only allowing 5 members to be appointed. We found out that other cities had more appointments, and these 2 rose to the top, and we felt that if we could convince the council, which we did at a previous meeting, to increase the number of people on the council, then these 2 would be the ones to be appointed.
Any comments? Motions?
Move the approval.
The motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please vote. That passes unanimously. Gets us on to item 6, Public Works, North Pleasant Valley Desalter Agreement for Professional Services During Construction. Mr. Counsel, is that going to be you tonight?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Now that a construction contract for the Desalter has been awarded, this item before you is to consider a professional services agreement with Brown & Caldwell for engineering services that are required during the construction of the project. In August of 2017, the city awarded the design services agreement to Brown & Caldwell, who has completed the plans and specifications for the project, which now have gone out to bid, and the contract has been awarded to William L. Lyles. And now the engineering services phase during construction of the project needs to get going, and Brown & Caldwell has submitted the scope of work and cost for construction phase services that is in the agenda report. Those services include reviewing contractor submittals, responding to requests for information, attending weekly construction progress meetings, and then commissioning services and ultimately preparing record drawings of the completed project. The construction phase scope of services also includes a required corrosion control study, which is as a requirement of the California Division of Drinking Water to verify that the treated effluent will be compatible with our existing system. And we expect that answer to be yes. We have to go through a regulatory compliance study of that, is why that corrosion control study is included. So staff recommends approving a professional services agreement with Brown & Caldwell. This will be a separate agreement from the design agreement for engineering services during construction in an amount not to exceed $2,332,503, and also authorizing the city manager to execute future amendments to the agreement in approximately 10% amount of $233,250 for unforeseen additional services if required during construction. So that concludes my report. I would mention that representatives from Brown & Caldwell are here with us tonight if there are any questions for them.
I just want to ask one question before we started off. Could you kind of walk me through a little bit what a submittal would be? I mean, what would they submit? I know that they had mentioned here reports and certifications and tests. Is that
yes
necessarily what a submittal would be?
Well, and contractor submittals. So essentially the design is laid out in the plans and specifications, and then for I was going to say almost all of the materials and things that are going to be constructed and installed by the contractor, they need to provide a submittal of those materials, whether it's the concrete, whether it's a type of pipe, whether it's a type of coating that goes on a pipe, just a myriad of items get submitted that because the contractor has the ability to choose, within a range of acceptable materials and equipment and those kinds of things, the contractor can choose to submit a certain type, and then that has to be reviewed and confirmed by the design engineer that it's going to be compatible with the design and be approved, and then that's what gets installed, and then that approved submittal is what's used by the on-site inspector that's watching the construction that says and verifies, yes, what got installed matches the approved submittal. It's a very extensive process, documented with paperwork and clear documentation of that process.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Any other questions or comments at this time? Mr. Mulchay?
Dave, I noticed in the staff report, it said 3,800 acre-feet of potable water. I've seen in past reports that the number was 3,900. And I know that the exact number is 3,877. So I just want to make sure that number hasn't changed.
No, right.
Okay.
It's just strictly a simple rounding. 3,800 is what I've intended to use consistently, but yes, it's the 3,800 yield off of the 4,500 total pump.
Right.
Yep. Yeah,
Okay.
so correct. That number has not changed.
And this is, how does this stack up in line with the budget that was presented to us in regards to these line items?
Right. It's right in line with that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any
That's all the questions I have.
Santangelo?
I just wanted, if anybody's watching at home, that this is not in addition to the money that's been looked at for the entire budget for this project. This is already part of that budget. It's not in addition.
That's correct.
That's all.
Questions?
Move the approval.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please vote. That passes unanimously. Gets us down to item B, the North Pleasant Valley Desalter Agreement for Professional Construction Management Services. Ms. Kwon.
Yes, thank you. This is a companion item for construction management services. Different from the engineering services from the design engineer, this is a separate effort for the management of the entire construction project. And this, now that we have a contract awarded, we're going to be moving into formulating the construction management plan, and initial efforts will be undertaken on communicating with the contractor. They've already submitted their contract for our review and execution, and then we'll move into preparing for the pre-construction meeting. We have a partnering team partnering process meeting set up. So this will, with approval of this item, we'll kick it into reality with moving forward with the construction of the project and with a construction management team in place. So a little bit of history. Back in July, we went through a request for qualifications and a request for proposals process to select a qualified consultant to provide these construction management services. And we received 2 statements of qualifications. And those were all reviewed and evaluated, and staff determined that both of those firms would then receive the request for proposals. Much more detailed information required in the proposal, and we did receive 2 proposals. Included the detailed project approach, scope of work. The fee is enclosed in a separate envelope that was opened and negotiated later. The selection was purely based on qualifications of the proposing firms. And we went through an interview process or ranking process. Water Systems Consulting Incorporated ranked the highest, essentially coming from their deep understanding of the project, the depth and experience of their proposed construction manager and supporting team of resident project representatives, extensive history and experience on similar like projects in the past, and then also the commitment of the firm to deliver the project to the city in the planned schedule in front of us. So just a real couple, the staff report outlines quite a few items describing what includes in construction management, but they're essentially responsible for that construction management plan, includes running and documenting and have minutes of weekly progress meetings, which are essential, reviewing the contractor's work for compliance with the construction documents, the plans and the specs out there in the field, on-site representatives. And we have soils and materials testing as a part of it, labor compliance administration, and then continuing on through the startup and commissioning and the project closeout, these services will be provided. So the recommendation is an approval of a professional services agreement with WSC for construction management services in an amount not to exceed $2,768,499. And a 10% contingency of authorization for the city manager to execute amendments up to $276,850 for unforeseen additional services. Likewise, representatives from WSC are here with us tonight if there's any questions for them.
Questions? Mr. Tremblay.
Mr. Counsel, just a couple of questions. I want to compliment WSC on the spreadsheet that they attached with the proposal, and it was very complete, just as Brown and Caldwell's was complete as well. But I did focus on a couple of things. First of all, the sheet indicates that the cost proposal has been revised as of June 24 of this year. Can you tell me how it was revised from the original?
Actually, I think I will need to ask WSC to shed some light on that.
I'm just reacting to what's in the upper left-hand corner.
Yeah, no, I see that. And actually, it may suffice to say that the request for proposal, or then the received proposal came in, I want to say towards the end of last year, as we were moving towards going out to bid the first time. And so we had a proposal in place with a fee. And then since that time, as we've gone out and rebid, and there has been some adjustments made to the proposal scope and the fee, essentially to update according to the current project that we have in front of us. Not any real significant changes. But it is just noted that it was rise from, there was a previous spreadsheet prepared in that previous proposal. So just to distinguish that this is the latest and greatest.
Right, but to put big picture and make it oversimplistic, the guts of the plant have not changed.
Correct.
But what you're saying is there have been some, am I hearing you correctly in saying there's been some minor revisions because of some of the plan and design changes, and that calls for some revisions in the CM side of this?
I believe that is some of it. Again, I would have to go back and get more detail on those exact changes for you, other than to say that changes in the plan that we did implement likely cause some changes in this.
Well, let me try from a different angle. Are the costs associated in this revised cost proposal, are they materially higher in any way than the original proposal?
No.
Okay, and by materially higher, I mean more than 5%.
Right. No. It was minor adjustments.
Okay, and then the one thing I noticed that caught my attention, again, I want to compliment the consultants on both Brown and Caldwell and WSC, but I always look at the number of hours that folks spend. So, for example, the Brown and Caldwell design engineer is spending 734 hours, and that's kind of breathtaking until you realize everything that goes into that role and the amount of time of this project. But I noticed that for the for the chief construction manager, Mr. Carnes, who I understand is eminently qualified, there's a total of 1,600 hours involved in that CM process. Would you characterize that as being a pretty reasonable number of hours given the complexity and the time length of this project?
Yes, correct. You hit the nail on the head there with both the complexity, the various elements of the project that Mr. Carnes is going to be responsible for overseeing, and the length of 2 years, essentially.
Okay.
Bulk of the work within 18 months, 20 months. But his expertise and those hours there will be covering the on-site grading, paving, concrete work. Specifically, the vertical construction of the admin building is where his expertise comes in also. So that, and then along with the pipeline construction, we have our conveyance pipelines from off-site and the on-site pipelines too. So he's covering a lot of ground.
Okay, and with apologies to Sean, but my follow-up question is with regard to this number, because the two contracts together are $5 million. So, but is this number from WSC in line with the prior projections, prior estimates given to the council?
Yes,
Okay.
correct.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Dave, just one, I know this is a pretty assertive, there's a lot of hands on deck, if you will, a lot of people going to be involved in this, and you're comfortable that they have obviously the people power and the nuances to get this thing, done and in a very high quality, pragmatic manner.
Yes, yep. As best as we've been able to plan for this project, we're ready to go. I've mentioned before to our group, it's probably the most exciting project that I've worked on. I think it's the largest construction contract that the city of Camarillo has entered into, if I'm not mistaken. It's also going to be one of the most challenging and a little bit scary at times with everything that's going into this. But we are confident that we have the best team possible assembled, and it's go time, and we're ready to go. We have a date looking forward to a groundbreaking ceremony in early September, and the contractor will be raring to go soon after that.
Okay.
Move the approval.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please vote. Okay, it passes unanimously. All right, let's get down to item C. It's the Camera Recorder Street Improvements Resolution for approving final pay. Counsel, do you have?
Yes, thank you. A short report on this. So this item is to consider approval of the final pay estimate and acceptance of those public improvements of the Camarillo Corridor street project, street improvement, essentially overlay project, the ST 5049. The Camarillo Corridor Street Improvements Project consisted of asphalt overlay, resurfacing, traffic control, striping, and related work, all of which has been completed. Back in April of 2018 is when Council authorized the contract with Hardy & Harper, the contractor for this project, in the amount of $2,239,000. A contingency amount of $335,850 was also authorized, with a total authorized expenditure of $2,574,850. At this point, with the project completed, we have final pay estimate number 4 to be approved to the contractor with payment in the amount of $38,788.78. And based on the final measured quantities of work, the total final cost of this contract is just under $2 million. The city is withholding liquidated damages in the amount of $90,000 from this pay estimate number 4 for delays to the project caused by Hardy & Harper. And they have since disputed this withholding the liquidated damages, and staff has been in conversations with the contractor on an ongoing basis to address the liquidated damages and that withholding. While these discussions continue, the city must release the monies due to Hardy & Harper for the undisputed work and file a notice of completion, then in order to release the retention monies that are due to Hardy & Harper for that completed work. The $90,000 withheld in liquidated damages would remain with the city and not released to Hardy & Harper until that's finalized. So, in going forward, we're requesting recommending a resolution accepting the improvements, approving the final pay estimate number 4 to Hardy & Harper, in the amount of $38,788.78, authorizing the mayor to sign the notice of completion, and then also authorize the city manager to resolve any pending contract disputes or claims that may arise out of the liquidated damages issue. And all of that would be within and not exceed the previously authorized total amount by City Council for this project in the amount of $2,574,850. We don't expect to get anywhere near that. We feel we have a very solid case for these liquidated damages for delays. Just a couple examples of the delays were and just lack of response and timeliness of the contractor to come out and do some of the completion items of work of permanent striping. And then, as with any project, there's follow-up punch list items of various items of work. Essentially, they were unresponsive to come out and fix those in a timely manner based on their choice of scheduling. So our staff did a very good job at staying after them, staying on top of it to get it done. However, it did take 90 days extra beyond the completion date to get those items completed. That concludes my report.
Any questions?
So doing the math, where it's liquidateds are being assessed at $1,000 per day.
That's correct, per the contract
But
specifications.
the whole reason to do this now is in essence file the notice of completion so the undisputed portion of the retention funds can be provided to the contractor plus the lien period or the cessation of the lien period starts under the civil code, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Any other questions? Counselor, can we take these separately, or can we do them together?
They should be separate.
It's the will of the council.
I'll move an adoption, accepting improvements, approving final pay estimate number 4 to Hardy and Harper, Inc. in the amount of $38,788.78 and authorizing the mayor to sign the notice of completion.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please vote. That passes unanimously.
I'll do a second motion to authorize the city manager to resolve any pending contract disputes or claims with Hardy and Harper within the total contract not to exceed amount of $2,574,850 as previously authorized by City Council.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please vote. That passes 5-0 as well. Mr. City Manager, do we have enough time to do the power? I know we've got a pretty packed study session.
Let's do this one item.
Okay, we'll go item D. It's the standby power at City Hall. Do we have a staff report on that, Mr.
Yes, thank you. This item is to consider issuing a request for qualifications to prepare a battery backup study for standby power at City Hall and the Corporation Yard. In January of 2018, City Council approved a design contract with JMPE Electrical Engineering to design standby power generators both at the City Hall and Corporation Yard. The current design focused on diesel power generators based on their long run time and reliability during an emergency. City Council has subsequently requested a study of the feasibility of using battery backup for standby power. So at this point, an RFQ will be advertised for essentially a feasibility study of battery storage for the project as an alternative to diesel-powered generators. That concludes my report.
Do we know how much that's going to cost us as far as just the advertising, just regular advertising rates kind of type thing?
Yeah, the advertisement is nominal.
All right. Any questions on this? Ms. Santangelo?
Do we have any idea how much the study will cost?
It's really difficult to put our best estimating hats on it. It's a relatively specialized area. Initially, before we even got to this step, we did reach out to some consultants that we knew had a little bit of experience, and that's exactly what it ended up being, is very, very minimal experience with battery backup. Relatively new area, somewhat specialized, especially for large or providing backup power for large facilities. So it'll be a challenge. We can't put our numbers on an estimated cost at this point. It's just really going to depend on working through and negotiating with the consultant to do the work.
Any other questions or comments? Ms. Tremblay?
Well, I wanted to take a minute or two to discuss this, if I can, Mr. Mayor. I supported Mr. Mulchey's request on June 12 to evaluate the viability of using battery backup power for standby power as an alternative clean power to the diesel generators for City Hall and Corporation Yard, and I think that was a well-founded request by Sean. And I support this RFQ request, but I'd like us to think about expanding the request. You all got, there's a recent article in Western City from July of 2019 relative, and the title of it is Small Cities Fund Public Works Infrastructure Projects with Clean Energy Savings. And I'd like to look at, in this RFQ, in the context of this RFQ, to look at our opportunities to create our own solar arrays and systems either at City Hall or the Corporation Yard or other city properties like the wastewater treatment plant for obvious reasons, including lessening our dependence on either clean power or on SoCal Edison, promoting renewability. And these really are, what I'm thinking of this is really complementary to Clean Power Alliance's local programs, the goals. So what the Western Cities article that you all received gave the example of two smaller cities issuing bonds against the savings created by using solar power versus staying on the traditional route of receiving expensive power either from an IOU or a CCA, I guess in their case an IOU, not a CCA, like Clean Power. And you identify the savings, the city sells lease revenue bonds that are backed by the quantified future savings, and then paid off the bonds and established a reserve. The example, for example, an example was given for Chowchilla, and that city could capture $28 million in savings by shifting its power supply from PG&E to solar and bonding against the savings spread over the next 20 years, with some assumptions made as to what PG&E rates would be. And the city also, in that case, utilized Proposition 1 funding. And what that does, in essence, is just drive down the cost of the borrowing. Because if we incur debt to do it, it drives down the cost of the borrowing and it frees more money to be applied to infrastructure. So, with all of that in mind, I think we should look at, my request specifically would be to expand the RFQ to have a specific component of it deal with the feasibility of creating solar energy systems on city properties, the ones I mentioned, or any others that make sense, for both operating electricity purposes as well as backup storage. And that would mean we'd expand this RFQ to include those issues that I've discussed. I think it's a really good idea that Mr. Mulchay had. I'd just like to take it and expand on it from just the battery backup. Hopefully I've articulated it well.
Ms. Craven?
I'm just wondering if that would have to be brought back, or if the attorney says we can add it tonight. It seems like quite an addition to something.
What is it exactly that you're requesting?
I'm requesting an expansion of the RFQ to include the feasibility of creating solar energy systems or arrays on city properties, the ones that I mentioned, for both operating electricity purposes and backup storage purposes, and then investigating what these two other cities have done relative to funding their public works infrastructure.
If I remember, and before the city attorney opines on this, if I remember, Councilmember Mulchay, in his request, had requested solar power as part of the battery backup process. So it's only expanding the opportunities from City Hall and the corporate yard to possibly other properties that the city owns.
And I would agree with that. And also, I think at this point, we're just authorizing the issuance of the RFQ. You're not committing to a project tonight. So all we're doing is expanding the scope of the request for qualifications. So I think you could do that if you wish.
Mr. Mayor, may I ask a question?
Sure.
On that thread, Dave, I know that, and I know both Susan and I were on this tour. We took a tour of the sanitation processing plant back late last year at some
I
point.
think we all were there.
Did everyone take? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Everyone was on the bus. Okay. So we took a little bus tour and we looked at the plant.
We're on the short bus.
Yeah. Sure. I distinctly recall you mentioning that that the city was exploring or would potentially explore in the future a type of solar array to offset the high energy costs. Would you be able to put it over one of the, I don't know what it's called, but retention ponds or something like that? and that there was some discussion about that as a possibility.
Right.
Is my recollection
Yes,
correct?
Yes, no, exactly. And I'm glad you mentioned that. I was going to try to interject and mention also that we have performed a energy efficiency feasibility study already for the entire treatment plant, all the operations there. If I recall, it's probably been maybe 2 years or so when we had a study session reviewing the results of that. And one of the that study looked at clean power alternatives, wind, solar, cogen. So it investigated everything that could apply down there at the treatment plant, with the result being, and Council's support of moving forward with a capital project for a solar array. So we haven't initiated that yet, but that step had been taken on reviewing the entire plant for electrical efficiencies. We're in the middle of a project right now to improve our blowers that provide air for our aeration basins. So that's an outcome of that study that was done. So we are implementing portions of that. And then, yes, you're correct. One item has already been identified for a solar array, with possibly on the plant premises. And then also we do have the property immediately to the west of the plant, that city-owned property that could take a solar array in that location also. Again, that was all focused specifically for the treatment plant. So, we would just be careful not to duplicate work, or maybe a follow updated review of that work could be included into what Councilmember Tremblay is requesting.
And earlier in your comments when we were talking about the sanitation plant, you referenced that there are battery backups out there currently, right? So the idea that solar array could potentially help feed that battery backup system as well?
Right. Yeah, we have some localized interruptible power supplies for certain equipment out there. It's relatively few. And then, of course, the whole plant is backed up by, we already have standby diesel generators out there that can power the entire plant.
Okay. I more of a comment. I like Mr. Tremblay's suggestion. I don't know if we can essentially piggyback. If the will of the council is that they liked the initial scope of this RFQ, then simply expanding it to essentially piggyback off that, I don't imagine would be exorbitantly more expensive to do, seeing that the bulk of the work is probably already being done in just looking at City Hall and the courtyard.
Yeah, I mean, we'll interject and maybe even request, it is not real common territory that we get into to do these studies. And with technology changing, I guess what I'm getting at is that possibly it may make sense to have two separate efforts, depending on what the consultants come back with, the professionals at doing this, regarding, a separate solar array for, under a, I'm drawing a blank on the term, but whatever the agreement is with Edison or CPA for the, supplying the energy for the facility, but then also putting it back in the grid. And those arrangements, that all needs to be a part of essentially the payback of your capital expenditure and bonding and that kind of thing. So I think it'd be good to have the flexibility to be able to arrange the studies that we're going to do either in one total, if there's a consultant or consultants that can do that and it makes sense to do it that way, or is it the type of thing that really should be split up? And maybe if council's approval can include the flexibility to do that, and of course we'd be coming back to council before we award anything to any consultant, also to prepare that.
All right. All right.
Yeah, we do it that way, or we could just defer on this item tonight, and you come back at the.
Actually, I don't think it's all that complicated. I think what we would be putting out for is a request for qualifications for consultants that, number one, do these type of studies, feasibility studies for municipalities to be able to create solar arrays and grids for energy efficiency. That's what we would be going out for. We would be hiring a professional to do the feasibility study. After that, which would include, the pro forma for, what it would cost to build the system, its bondability, revenue, payback, feeding to the grid, all those things, so that you can make a decision whether or not you want to invest in something like this at this level.
And you feel
Well,
we
but-
do that in one?
That would be a separate, what you described is different than what's in the packet, what we're talking about. So I think what Mr. Klotzel said is
No,
it
not
might
necess-
be two, you said, you didn't mention battery backup just now, and that's what's in the packet. So what he said, I think, is it might be two different people who have two different kinds of expertise, people who are investigating the feasibility of and where we'd put solar arrays, and then other people looking at the possibility of battery backup. They're two different things as I see them, so I'm not following.
I'm not sure they are two different things. There are in today's world of electrical generation and storage, they're all being looked at as the same technology, the same ability to be able to be self-sufficient when it comes to the generation and storage and usage of electrical power.
So we would word it so that we'd exclude somebody who just wanted to do one of them?
Yeah, I mean, I believe there are companies out there that can give us good professional guidance on the whole package.
They're all interconnected. When you're generating solar electricity, you're doing one of three things to it. You're actually using it as it's being generated. You're feeding it back into the grid and getting payback from whoever you're selling it to, if it's in this case Edison, or you're storing it in a battery. And those things are all three. When you look at solar generation, someone's just going to naturally look at those other three things as part of it. So they are kind of married, and they kind of go hand in hand. And any consultant or company that's kind of worth their weight in gold in this area is going to be pretty well versed on all those things.
All right. Staff, is that, because I'm hearing one or two, or is there,
Right.
right,
No,
this?
we can work with that, and
Okay.
one possible structure could be if there's a sub that's required for a specialty, then that's how it would be packaged, so we can work with that.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? All right. What's the will of the council?
I just want to, thank you. I think that this is really important, and I'm very happy to support looking at this. I think it's a good move. Thank you.
Motion's in order then, please.
You're going to make me repeat all that?
Reword it.
Would you
I
do
can't
that?
just simply say a suggested staff motion plus what I've articulated?
I think you need to get some words out.
No, that's a challenge to a lawyer. Okay, my form of motion would be to authorize staff to issue a request for qualifications to prepare a battery backup study for the standby power at City Hall and Corporation Yard project, and as part of that RFQ to include a specific component concerning the feasibility of creating solar arrays and solar energy systems on city properties, including City Hall, the Corporation Yard, and the wastewater treatment plant for the purposes of both operating electricity and backup storage.
Okay.
Does that work?
Staff, you have that?
And I'll second.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please vote. That passes unanimously.
Just
Okay.
a comment, just so people don't think we're really behind the times, we already have a solar array down at the Corp Yard.
Right. That's right. Okay, so we'll pause here. I know we have a couple of closed session. Counselor, do you want to announce the closed sessions now, or should we wait?
Well, I could announce them just in case there's time, but we may or may not have time. There's two, conference with legal counsel on existing litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D1. Name of the case is Southwest versus the City of Camarillo. The case number is in the agenda. The second item is a conference with real property negotiator, the authorities, Government Code Section 54956.8. The property is the Camarillo Ranch, 2001 Camarillo Ranch Road. The agency negotiators are listed in the agenda. Negotiating parties, Camarillo Ranch Foundation, under negotiation, lease, price, and terms of payment.
Okay, so with that, we were in recess until 7:30. I'd like to call the City Council back to order, please, and let the record reflect that all council members are present, and I will ask Ms. Santangelo for the flag salute, if you would, please.
Please stand. Hand over heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Amendments to this agenda?
No amendments.
No presentation, no public safety, public comments. I do have 2 cards. Let me turn the microphone on. And first is David Schlangen. David's here. Again, David, I think you're well aware. 3 minutes, if you would. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Kildee, council members, city staff, and fellow Camarilloans. My name is David Schlangen, and I live at 3320 Ivy Garden Court. I hope everyone here and watching on TV had a very happy 4th of July. I saw many flags waving during that week, and it reminded me of the proper way that flags should be retired when they get old. Over 4 years ago, May 8th, 2015 to be exact, I, along with Billy Gerbassi, a local Boy Scout from Troop 858, attended a city council meeting requesting that a retirement flag fire pit be built within Camarillo for the Boy Scouts to use to retire old flags. This was going to be Billy's Eagle Scout project. Billy and I were told to speak to the Pleasant Valley Recreation and Park District, with those conversations going nowhere because they didn't want to maintain it and they didn't have the proper place for it. Upon hearing that the old firehouse may be torn down, I thought that we could use part of that area as a location for this ceremonial fire pit. The fire pit would need a flagpole. We can use the current firehouse flagpole and place a plaque at the base commemorating the Camarillo firehouse, as council member Craven stated that she wanted to do at the last city council meeting. Around the fire pit, I envision having 6 stone seats. 5 of those stone seats would be dedicated to a branch of the armed forces, and the 6th stone seat would be dedicated to first responders, firefighters, police, paramedics, etc. We can then place a City of Camarillo sign at the corner of the park that would mirror the sign directly across the freeway at the 101 North Lewis exit. So when individuals come off 101 South Lewis exit, their first view of Camarillo would be the St. Mary Magdalene Chapel, the City of Camarillo sign, and the ceremonial fire pit, upgrading the area as Councilmember Santangelo had requested. In order to lessen the cost to Camarillo taxpayers, my plan is to work with local military organizations like the American Legion, Gold Coast Veterans Foundation, and the U.S. Navy base, and other nonprofit organizations for contributions, and with architects and builders that would be willing to donate their time and material for this worthy cause. I know that this isn't on the agenda tonight, so you can't vote on it, but my hope is that you would direct staff to work with me so that we can create drawings and potential costs to bring back to the City Council for you to vote on at a future meeting date. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Mitch Noda. Mitch here.
Hello, council members. My name is Mitch Noda. I've been a resident of Camarillo for over 20 years, along with my family. And I just want to bring to your attention a dangerous condition. And it's a potential hazard that could cost the city tens of millions of dollars. I know there are 2 city attorneys here. One is the vice mayor, and the other is the city attorney. I'm also an attorney. I've been an attorney for 25 years, a corporate attorney working for Oracle and now for Panavision. The dangerous condition that I'm talking about is at 559 Crestview Avenue. That's where my residence is. It's a very busy street with a turn. Over the last less than 2 years, approximately a year and a half, there have been 3 accidents. All 3 accidents have occurred with single vehicles. So each vehicle was probably speeding. They couldn't make that turn, and two of the vehicles hit some type of drainage device that's described kind of like a fire hydrant. It's made out of solid metal. The first time it went through my fence into my backyard, I lifted it, and it weighed probably around 70 to 75 pounds. How can the city potentially save tens of millions of dollars? This is the third time that it's occurred at that same curve. Two of the times they went into my property. The other time, the skid marks were such that they avoided my property and hit the house across the street, hit the tree, and knocked it over and killed it. They hit one of my trees, otherwise they would have went straight into my property as well. Down the block, 3 houses over, there's another curve. And in that same 2-year span, a car went over their driveway and into the yard and hit a stucco building. So why am I saying this could potentially save the city tens of millions of dollars? There's no sidewalks on Crestview. Everything is with a bike path. All the people and pedestrians walk there using the bike path. And so it doesn't take a genius to figure out that somebody's going to get hit. It's either going to be a kid, a mother on a stroller. There's retired gentlemen who take a walk every morning, a group of them. Any one of them could be seriously hurt or killed. And as attorneys, you now know that since I'm giving you this notice, it won't be just negligence. It will be gross negligence on the city if they do nothing. I asked for speed bumps to be put there on both sides of both curves, knowing that there's been 4 accidents that you could confirm with either the sheriff's department or the city police. And I know you can't vote on it today, but I ask you to consider it. Thank you.
Okay.
I have a question.
Thank you. Your question.
Could you tell us again, your voice kind of broke when you said where it was?
It's on Crestview.
Crestview, thank you.
Yes.
Okay.
Specifically at 559
That-
is one of the curves.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Make this woman say it.
I believe it's Grace Law. Lou, I'm sorry. Excuse me. Again, 3 minutes if you would. I'd appreciate it. You can move that microphone way down if you would, Grace. Thank you.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, it's good.
Okay.
Thank you.
My name is Grace Liu. I am the president of Ventura County Chinese American Association. I think I met Charlotte, and some of you I don't really know yet, but I really kind of want to get to know you. Really thank you for the city of Camarillo. Every year you guys sponsor and support us, being a partner with the Camarillo Public Library. We put in a Chinese New Year festival every year, and we draw out about 2,000 people to the crowd, and it's very educational as well as bringing economic people coming in to shop here or even get to know the city. And we have wonderful weather here, so we're very proud of City of Camarillo. I personally has a deep sense of Camarillo because you have a great outlet mall, you have Camarillo Ranch House, you have a great Spanish Hill Country Club. There's the best weather here, shopping, education, all that. You have the wonderful brand new high school. And the reason I want to share that with you is because I'm very proud of the city and what you offer here. And I'm here tonight to ask you for your support that maybe you can give us an invitation letter to Shaoxing, city of Shaoxing in China, because throughout the years, you guys have been supporting as a friendship city for us to go visit them and share ideas and experiences. It could be economic experiences, can be education experiences, and can be just meeting other leaders throughout the world. They are asking us to bring the delegates here, and the delegates that we have currently willing to come here is 6 delegates, and they're all education related. I have been talking to people throughout Channel Island, UC Channel Island, Moorpark colleges, and some of your junior colleges around the neighborhood, as well as your Oxnard School District. So we CCAA will be willing to, and also gives 100% of support to bring them here and take them around. All we're asking you for the city support, and they need an invitation letter for you. So I hope that you can support that. Thank you.
Thank you. Lorena here, Secretary. Oh, there she is. Okay. Oh, there you are. Okay. Again, 3 minutes, if you would, please.
I have an article that was printed in the.
Speak into the microphone if
Sorry,
we are. Thank you.
I'm so sorry. Before my time starts, I have an article, and I also have a list of resources that you can check. The article is from the Acorn, and it is written by Kevin Naramore, which he is the environmentalist biologist in our local area. So he covers Thousand Oaks, Ventura County, basically. So it's a well-written article. And thank you so much for allowing me to speak. Here, the same topic, 5G. So in June 27, T-Mobile turned off the 5G towers in LA County. So all the way from Pacific Palisades, Calabasas, Westlake, some part of Thousand Oaks, and that area about Potrero Ranch, or Potrero Road, that is by the university and behind there. So anyway, after they turned on their 5G, people have been reporting deaths of birds, squirrels. And especially one, it was a family of swans that was, I can't remember what lake it was living, but the whole family of swans have died. Now, in last year, in November, in the Netherlands, they tried their 5G, they turned it on, and 273 birds just dropped dead, okay? Now, if you go and ask the farmers, now Ventura County is a farm community. You have Fillmore, over here, Camarillo, Ventura, and you have Oxnard, right? So one of the things that we need for our farms is bees. And our bees, you can go and ask the farmers, especially if you go to the university, is the university, it is a farm in Santa Paula that hosts a university. So there is a lot of people that study, regarding plants or whatever. So anyway, so you go and ask them. They're very concerned about the bees disappearing. So now with that technology, 5G is not affecting the bees. The bees were affected already by 3G, okay? So the bees are getting Alzheimer's, like elderly people do, and they don't know how to come back to their honeycombs. So I ask, please, that you look into it, because I know the community across the high school, which is, across the freeway, the Camarillo High School is on Mission Oaks, and then you go across the freeway. That community, they have seen people installing their 5G antennas, and I'm very concerned. They are installing them. They haven't gone on yet, but they're installing them. So I know Dr. Dafna Tacobar met with Mr. Kevin Kindle a couple of weeks ago, and she's a specialist, international specialist for radiation from wireless technology. And I please ask, if I give you papers, that you look into it, please, because 5G is going to be so detrimental for humans and for every single living creature. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Do not have any other blue cards, public comments? Please proceed.
An item that's not on the agenda.
It's an item that's not on the agenda. It's just public comments tonight? Yes. Yeah. Okay, for sure. I just want to make sure I call you up at the right moment.
State her name for the record.
Hi, my name is Luisa Levine. I live at 21 Margarita Avenue at the Camarillo Springs Country Club Village in Camarillo. And I would like to, for the record, since we have a little time, to say that I am here to let you know that I oppose the building of the golf course, of part of the golf course, for 200 plus homes. My husband and I are new in the area, but we attended a HOA meeting, and we're just becoming familiar with the issues. But I'd like to say that we are opposing it also on account of many reasons, especially the safety reason that 300 homes and probably 500 plus cars would pose to an evacuation event, should there be one. The pollution that it would create with additional cars, especially of this number. And then there are a lot of other issues. And also on account of the wildlife and the, that will be very much endangered and disrupted. There is, I don't know if it's designated as a sanctuary, but there are birds and wildlife in this area, especially that have been preserved and in other local areas. So anyway, there is a lot to say about it, but just I wanted to express my opposition. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? Public comments? Okay, we'll move down. No public hearings, just departmental. It's a request. Yes, Mr. Tremblay?
I would actually like to respond relative to...
Oh, for sure.
I think I'm entitled to just make very brief remarks. With respect to Mr. Noda's comments, what I would ask is that that matter be referred to our traffic department and ask that a report come back to the council or to the council's Streets and Transportation Committee. And that would be my request. And I think I need a second on that one.
I'd support that.
As well.
And with respect to Mr. Schlangen's recommendations, I want to thank you for your idea. Unfortunately, I was not at the last council meeting, but I know that the council put together its own vision of some of the things that it sees at the old firehouse property. But I think I just wonder though, from a process standpoint, it seems to me like the next step is a second community workshop, thereafter followed by another city council meeting. So I'm just wondering if this might be, from a process standpoint, premature, whether or not the best way to put forward your ideas is to go present them again at the second community workshop. It's just a thought, but I appreciate the thoughts and the ideas. Just a comment.
Okay, that gets us down to departmental request of a letter for the invitation, the Shaoxing China delegation. Do we have a staff report?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Shaoxing Municipality, China has recognized the city of Camarillo as one of its friendship cities for a number of years and has sent education delegations to the city in the past. However, in 2002, the City Council clarified that the city of Camarillo has no friendship city relationship with Shaoxing from our side, and that all future correspondence from Shaoxing Municipality be presented to the City Council for review. In light of that, we are presenting their request for your review. They would like to send another education delegation to Camarillo in September, and we have provided that delegate listing. The delegation would spend 1 to 2 days in Camarillo. The Ventura County Chinese American Association makes arrangements to meet with schools and local educators and organizes the itinerary. The VCCAA requests that all or some city council members meet with the delegation at City Hall for approximately a half an hour and attend a dinner hosted by the VCCAA. This will not require any financial assistance from the city. In order to facilitate the arrival of the delegation, the municipality requires an invitation letter be executed, a draft of which is attached. This letter does not establish a friendship city or any other relationship with Shaoxing Municipality, but simply allows the delegation to come to the United States. That concludes staff's report.
Any questions or comments, Ms. Craven?
I have questions. I'm not sure if they're, excuse me, if they're for staff or for the committee. But my one question is, why can't they come without a letter from us? And the second one is, the city council requested that these come to the city council. I don't remember having received or approved these in the past. So if they do require a letter, how did they come in the past without these letters coming to the city council?
I can answer that particular question. All the letters were signed by either mayor, vice mayor, or council member Morgan.
Without coming to the city council?
Correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
In terms of your first question, council member, can anybody from VCCAA
I think they
respond
have
to-
some people going to
What's that?
I have one card with them.
Okay, go ahead.
I just want to make sure there's any other questions before I call them up. Pretty good. All right, I do have two cards. The first is Angus Simmons. Angus?
Honorable Mayor and distinguished members of the City Council, thank you very much for hearing our request from the Ventura County Chinese American Association. Just for those of you who may not be familiar, the VCCAA, as we're called, is a 501(c) organization which was established in 1970. And we've been very active in doing Chinese cultural outreach to a wider Ventura County audience. We've had the honor of cooperating with the library and the city over a number of years to put on a Chinese New Year program. We've worked with the outlet malls to help put on a Chinese New Year lion dancing demonstration. And by the way, the outlet malls is a premier destination for Chinese tourists and shoppers, so much so that several of the shops there have people who work there who are fluent in Chinese, and they accept Shanghai credit cards there. Anyway, our organization has cooperated with Shaoxing City over a number of years to help facilitate their visits here, and we've taken up all of the financial obligations of their visits. But the city has been very gracious in meeting with the delegations for a courtesy call, and in that way helping to provide a umbrella so that the people-to-people exchange that takes place under a Friendship City organization can happen. Council Member Craven asked about why they need a letter. China's a little different than we are in its organization. They put a little more officiality into these kinds of people-to-people exchanges, so it's very helpful to facilitate these kinds of things if there is a letter from the city. But as I say, no other financial responsibilities are incurred by the city. Shaoxing is a great city. If you're going to have a partner, it's a city of 5 million people. It's a center of the silk industry. It's an important center of the electronics industry. It's the center of the eponymous Shaoxing wine, which is the largest wine that's the most important wine that's distributed around China. It's a very important cultural city. It's a tourism center. So it's a great city to be partnered with. We've taken some soundings. There are educational groups and organizations that would be willing to meet with this group during the visit. This kind of visit helps show that we're internationally minded as a city and facilitates people-to-people exchange. And I can assure you that when delegations and President Liu and past President Hillary Ling and others who've traveled get a very good reception in Shaoxing if they go there. So I would hope that you can find your way to approving and signing a letter of invitation. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we've got Hillary Ling. Welcome.
Honorable Mayor Kevin Kildee and Honorable City Council members and staff, my name is Hillary Ling. I'm a retired dentist and have been a member of Camarillo Somers area for over 50 years. I'm a supporter of the City of Camarillo and the local Chinese Cultural Association in many ways throughout the years. 18 years ago in 2001, I went to Shaoxing, China as one of the members delegation led by former Mayor Mr. Michael Morgan. and we were welcomed and treated as a royal guest in Shaoxing during that visit. To extend our hands for international friendship for cultural exchange and potential tourism in our city and Ventura County is a positive thing to do. I fully support the City of Camarillo in cooperation with the Chinese Association to display our welcome mat to Shaoxing educational visitors in September. Our local Chinese Association Welcome Committee, under the able leadership of former diplomat to China, Mr. Angus Simmons, and our President Grace Liu, will be able to show our hospitality and friendship to our visitors and make our city proud. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? I don't have any other cards on this. Okay. Let's see. Are there any? Sorry about that. Friend is back.
Your answer back?
Yeah. So are there any other questions of staff on this? Anybody else any questions? Are there any comments anybody would like to say? Let me start this off. I was requested to send this letter, and what I opted to do is refer it to our city clerk, and our city clerk then, my understanding, and please jump in here if you'd like, referred this to our city manager, and I believe there was another representative from the organizations that approached the city manager, and the city manager recommended that he send a letter of request for an agendized situation that we find ourselves in here. So that's how this all became what it is. Dave, is that pretty much accurate from what you?
Yeah, after significant research by the city clerk of the history of this issue.
Yeah. I wanted to make sure that it was, the policy and procedures were being followed. So that's how it all kind of got to be where it is now. So with that, any other comments or anybody would like to talk about this at all? What the feeling is? Mr. Tremblay?
Sure. I'm supportive of the request. There are no city funds being expended. From my vantage point, it's in furtherance of cultural exchange and goodwill. And on that basis, I'd be supportive.
Okay. Anyone else? Mrs. Craven, did you get your questions? I think you had one. Why we need the letter, and I believe there was one other one. I didn't know if that had been answered or not.
Yes, the other one, the city manager answered. And I believe Mr. Simmons said that it helped facilitate it. He didn't say it was required. Is that correct, what you said? Well, I can't ask you there.
Yeah.
But could we have him come back and?
Yeah. Ms. Simmons, can you just come back? We just got a question to ask you, please, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, I can't speak for the officialdom of Shaoxing municipality, but it would be very helpful, and I can't say for certain whether it's absolutely necessary and whether they couldn't come if they didn't get it, but I suspect that might be the case.
Thank you.
That's as far as I can explain it.
Okay. Any other comments from anybody else?
A question. Being one of the newbies, I know this exchange has been going on for quite some years.
Since 2002? Was it? 2 or 7? 2001 or 2.
Since 2001.
Yeah.
And what is the distinction? What's the difference between a friendship? What is a friendship city?
Friendship City is an organization primarily with Chinese cities. We, back in that year, each mayor was sent, at least in this county, I don't know if it was throughout the United States or not, but each mayor was invited to participate in this program and to come and to bring people from their city. And it was some kind of a deal to set up businesses in China. And I believe Mr. Morgan was mayor that year, and he did that. I will start out by saying in my comments, and I'm sorry, I'm interrupting here, but what you ask, but The first one did not come to the city, well, it did. The city council decided we did not want to be a friendship city, and there were quite a few, what can I say, bad feelings when we saw a picture in a Chinese newspaper that was sent to me by somebody I know who subscribed to the newspaper, and it said, Camarillo, Shaoxing, friendship cities, and had our seal and their seal. And since we had voted against that, there were a lot of hard feelings for quite a few years over this issue. Since this does not say friendship city, I can support it because we at one time voted not to be a friendship city. So, but it's kind of like something that there aren't friendship cities from other countries so far as I know.
So is there any other, does that answer your question?
No, that answers my question, and I don't have an issue with this. It doesn't. I'll kind of echo a bit of what Tony said, that it doesn't expense any city funds, and I think it kind of furthers the cultural exchange. So,
okay. Did you want to say something, Mr. Morgan?
Well, now if I've been attacked about 3 or 4 times, I might as well say something. I didn't want to. But it was not a friendship city they were asking us for in those days. It was a sister city. A sister city is one of those where cities have sisters, like we have in Mexico, I set up, with Outlaw, Mexico. They didn't ask for a friendship city. They were turned down on a sister city proposal. You can be a friendship city if you have a club in the community, like the Chinese club, that wants to form a friendship city with them. And they came here. They didn't come here looking for people to come locate their businesses there. They came and visited Camarillo at someone's suggestion from L.A., the Counsel. This is a beautiful city. They came up and I gave them a tour around Camarillo in their little bus. They loved Camarillo. They said, you have a beautiful city. They liked the airport. They liked the farmland, especially, surrounding us. They liked the university. They liked everything about us. Then they said, we'd like to invite you to come see our city. And I said, why not? 2001 Space Odyssey, someone did it. And so it was a super enlightening visit. We've had probably, 12 visits over there with people, 15 to 18 Camarillians that have gone there and come back just claiming how good it was. Because they treat us very well, and the people treat us very well. Oh, ni hao. They're very friendly with us. And so it's nothing to do with business, had nothing, and maybe what you heard in other cities. But this came here as a friendship group. And this group here is an example of that. They're university, they're educational people coming here, and the people at the university can't wait to see them. So I kind of disagree with some of the things you said, Charlotte, and that's...
Could be, but that's how we found out about it.
When I sent my letter out to invite them here, I asked my city manager first. You weren't here.
All right.
And that's how I did it. Okay?
Appreciate your comments. Okay, so we've had a discussion here. Any other comments from any council members?
No.
Okay.
Make a motion. I would move to authorize the mayor to sign a letter of invitation to the Shaoxing, I hope I pronounced that correctly. Thank you. China People's Congress for the visit of an educational delegation.
A letter or this letter?
The letter of invitation attached as a draft to our staff report.
Thank you.
There's a motion. Is there a second on that?
Second that.
Mr. Mulchay, second. So there's a motion, a second. Any other comments? Hearing none, please vote. Okay, that passes unanimously, and I think we know next time how to do this. So that's good. All right, so we're going to get back onto the first part of the agenda here, and it is the item D in, yes, thank you, Public Works, Old Town Ventura Crosswalk signs, solicit bids. Do we have a staff report on that?
Yes, thank you, Mayor.
Counsel.
Bring up a short presentation here. On December 12th, 2018, at a study session, staff discussed with City Council proposed crosswalk improvements on Ventura Boulevard in the Old Town area. I'm going to talk tonight about 2 specific locations that were identified for improvements with flashing LED crosswalk signs. First one being that's shown on the screen at the crosswalk at the driveway entrance into the parking lot for the former courthouse, farmers market area, and the side yard. The second location is at the intersection of Ventura Boulevard and Glen Drive, where there are 2 crosswalks, one on either side of this intersection. Some street view photos of the locations here at the entrance into the parking lot that serves the farmers market area and also Sci-Art. This is looking west, and you can see the existing pedestrian crosswalk sign here. And there's another one on the other approach coming from the west going eastbound, another sign there. This project would replace these signs with a solar-powered flashing LED around the perimeter of the crosswalk sign and push-button activated. Likewise, new signs would replace these that are at the Ventura Boulevard and Glen Drive intersection. You can see the 2 crosswalks on either side of Glen Drive. Currently, there's 1 sign on the approach of each side of these crosswalks. The proposal is to add 4 post locations, and each post location would have a sign back-to-back on either side. This location calls for as much attention given to when pedestrians in the crosswalk as possible, and staff feels that adding essentially it would be 8 flashing signs here, 2 signs per pole, 4 pole locations, and a shot looking back the other way, looking westbound. So the poles would be relocated at the place where the pedestrians would be able to push the button upon crossing, and these are the 2 locations, and this one being enhanced again with the 4 locations of poles with signs on either side of the poles. The represented here is sample pictures of these installations with a dedicated pole, the solar-powered panel on top, the equipment, the pedestrian push button to activate the sign. And again, this proposal would be for 10 signs total. Total estimated cost is $30,000. And staff's recommendation is to authorize the solicitation of bids for flashing LED crosswalk signs. Upon receipt of bids, staff would then propose to come back to City Council with a recommendation to award a contract for the purchase of the signs and installation. And that concludes my report.
Questions, Mr. Counsel, at this particular point?
No,
All right.
no questions, just a comment.
Okay, any questions? Okay, let's get into the comments then. Mr. Mulchay?
Yeah, no, I'll be brief. I myself, particularly both these intersections, I've seen too many close calls. It's far too frequent of an occurrence. I myself have difficulty seeing pedestrians crossing those, particularly the one, the second one we had looked at closest to the freeway entrance. In the restaurants there, for whatever reason, as pedestrians walk across, they just kind of blend into the landscape a little bit. Particularly at night, it's very difficult to see people. So I think I'm all for this.
Any other comments?
Yeah.
Mr. Cranby?
Yeah, I think I first brought this up sometime last year, and I've been very concerned about our pedestrian crosswalks in Old Town. This originally came to me, I agree wholeheartedly with what Sean has indicated, speaking from my own personal experience, and this also came to me from a longtime resident of the area. I think these are necessary improvements, and I fully support them.
Any comments?
I just agree with what's been said.
Same, I agree. I think they're necessary. Good improvement.
Might add, as the park down there potentially gets changed too, that this will be hopefully more pedestrian friendly and continue to be pedestrian friendly. So, okay, so I believe a motion's in order.
Move the approval.
Second.
It's a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on this? Hearing none, please vote. That passes unanimously. Administrative Services, Police Facility Staff Restroom Remodel. Carmen, will that be you tonight?
Thank you, Mayor. The Police Department Staff Restroom Remodel is one of the capital improvement projects approved for this current fiscal year. The project is necessary to provide for ADA accessibility to both the women and men's restrooms, bringing them up to the required building code. More importantly, plumbing from the 1980s is now deteriorating or has been for some time. The repair of the sewer drain lines and replacement of toilets and urinals is necessary. Staff continues to invest a significant amount of time for patchwork repairs, and often the facilities are out of order. An example is the men's urinals, which have been out of order for now a significant amount of time. Work under the project will provide a solution for all these issues. Improvements include the installation of water-efficient fixtures such as sink faucets and toilets and LED lighting. And in order to make room for ADA accessibility, the design provides for changes in the current layout, such as reducing the number of sinks and relocation of the countertop in the men's restroom. City and police staff worked with the architect and arrived at the recommended design. And with the design now complete, staff is moving forward with the development of specifications and a bid packet. With your approval tonight, we expect to solicit bids in early August and return to City Council with a recommendation to award a contract for construction in September. Tonight's suggested action seeks Council's approval to solicit a notice inviting bids for project PD-5087, construction services for the police department staff restroom remodel.
Any other questions of Carmen at this time? How long do you figure it'll take, how long is it going to take to do this, do you think? Is there a time estimate on this?
We don't have well, I'll have a better time estimate once we get the bids back, but for the entire construction project, I can't tell you at this time. We're hoping to get it done within this current fiscal year.
But at this particular time, it is still functional, the restroom do.
There are segments of the bathrooms that are functional. So
Okay,
we have toilets that are working in the men's restroom, but not urinals. And so there are things that are working, things that are not working. We do some patchwork repairs, but we do need some major overhaul on the sewer drain lines and just replacing the fixtures that have been there since the 1980s. So time to go.
Mr. Tremblay, do you have a comment or question?
I'd like to make a motion.
Okay, a motion is in order.
Can I, without further ado, move the suggested action?
Second.
A motion is second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please vote. That passes unanimously. Thank you. All right, that gets us down to, let's see, I believe that gets us down to new business. Mr. City Manager, any new business tonight?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So our July 4th celebration at Adolfo Camarillo High School was a success. The gates opened at 7 p.m. People arrived, and it was looking a little thin at 7 p.m., but at 9 p.m., the stadium filled up, and it was crowded. And the show went off without a hitch, and it was wonderful. A lot of good comments about that show. Our advertising campaign to inform people about how the program had changed, it was very successful. Very few people brought anything they weren't supposed to bring. We had people, of course, bring their families in strollers, so we had a stroller parking area that was well used, no complaints. People really had a good time and behaved themselves, and it was a good event. So given that we were under constrained circumstances, we retooled the event, made the best of it, and it went off very well. Very pleased about that. On Monday of this week, we welcomed our group of summer interns to City Hall for our second year of the Summer at City Hall program. These students are from both Adolfo Camarillo and Rancho Campana high schools, and they'll spend 3 weeks with a city mentor. They'll be learning the role of local government, and they'll be specializing in one particular area of our city, doing a project, and they'll be completing a project which they'll present at the end of the program. My staff is very excited about the opportunity to engage with the youth. We always enjoy this time of year, and we appreciate your support, City Council. We invite you to attend their final presentation on Friday, July 26th at 10 a.m. Each of the interns will be giving a PowerPoint on what they did and what they learned. Charlotte remembers this from last year, and I think she really enjoyed seeing all the presentations. And then they'll be coming back in September to receive some certificates of recognition and appreciation, and there will be a video compendium of their experience here. As you all know, last week, Southern California experienced 2 very large earthquakes, which were felt here in Camarillo and all along the Central Coast. This is a reminder for our community to be prepared for earthquakes and all other emergencies that can happen at any time. We encourage everyone to register at VC Alert to receive text messages in an emergency. And the best way to get to that VC Alert sign-up sign is just Google VC Alert, follow the link. You'll get to the exact page you need to go to sign up. And we encourage everyone to use resources such as ready.gov to ensure they will be prepared when an emergency strikes closer to home. We have this information available on our city's website, and we continue to push this information out to the public through other communications channels. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Councilor, anything tonight for us?
I have no items.
Okay, so we'll start with City Council. Would like to start off tonight. Would you like, Charlotte, would you like to start off tonight?
Sure. I attended the Camarillo Ranch Foundation Board meeting last night, and there's several things I want to report. First of all, as you know, their CEO resigned some time ago, and they now have a new temporary interim CEO or director, as she calls herself, Sandy Nuremberg. She's volunteering, and I'm sure she'll do an excellent job. There were a couple other things they asked about. There are no skateboarding signs on the facility, and they thought it might be good. The city has an ordinance, and I didn't know if the ordinance listed specific places where there's supposed to not be skateboarding. I thought we reworded it so that that could be an administrative decision. If not, maybe we need to look at how we can do it so that they can have no skateboarding signs out there. And it's not the same as a company because it's our property. There was something else, but maybe Sean will be able to remember what it was that I thought was significant. The one new member, board member, Thomas Hayden was there, and I think he'll be a very good board member. In fact, I thought that last night's meeting, from my perspective, went very well. The people who were there, 11 of the 12, 10 of the 11 members, whatever, there was just one member who wasn't able to come. They were all people who are very, very dedicated to the ranch. And there was I'll let Sean tell you about the letter from the docents, but I hope that we can get a copy of the letter that was sent to the board, and that maybe the city clerk can distribute it to the council members. It gives a lot of information about what the docents do, and I think that's important for the council members to know. I have a couple of LA Times articles. One is on the 5G rollout, and the other is on, it's called Leaders, and that's leaders of the Assembly and the Senate. Strike deal on homeless problem, and this was in conjunction with the passage of the budget. And I'm going to ask the city clerk to distribute both of these through council mail. I hope you'll read through this homeless problem one, because it involves the state agreeing to give some money to municipalities to deal with their homeless ones. It also involves penalties. In extreme cases, it can be up to $600,000 a week, a month. A week. So we need to be aware of what they're doing and how the agreements they're coming to, and maybe we need to take positions on those. I haven't seen letters on that. I'm also, here it is. I received a member newsletter from the Western Foundation of Vertebrate Society, and they have great things happening there. And I know we don't get a copy of this. Maybe we should. We give them so much money. I'm sure they wouldn't object. They just haven't thought of it. But it tells of everything that's out there. And if you haven't visited this museum, I think it would be a good place to go. They're open, I forget, one day every month now instead of just one day a year. They're a place that is great for bird research. They're the only place of its kind in the world. And they have a lot of kids' camps going on this summer, so it's a lot of exciting things out there. And if you'll just be with me a little bit, I want to lament the passing of Roadrunner. I will not be at the next council meeting, and so it would have been appropriate to have said this then, but Roadrunner Shuttle started as Ventura County Shuttle based in Newberry Park in either the late 80s or early 90s, and it was bought by the Sandlands in 1992 or so, and they are the ones who brought it to Camarillo. In December of 1995, I just happened to be coming home from a vacation, and it was a Tuesday night, I believe. I learned that from the driver on the way home that that LAX was not going to allow Roadrunner or any other shuttle service to pick up passengers. Anybody can drop off passengers, but they wouldn't be able to pick up passengers anymore because there was a moratorium going to be placed on all shuttles except for Prime Time and what's the blue one?
Super Shuttle.
Super Shuttle. And those were the only ones that were going to be allowed there. And so I came back, and the next night I made the council aware of this because I thought this would be a big impact to Camarillo. I had looked up the cost, and the cost was about 4 times on either one of them to get to Camarillo of what it was on Roadrunner. And so this board was going to vote on that on Thursday. So we took it up as a subsequent need item and decided that the city of Camarillo would write a letter to the Los Angeles City Department of Airports. Mayor Smith sent his letter, and he went the next day and talked to Ventura County Transportation Commission. And by that night, a letter from every one of the 10 cities and the county and the Transportation Commission was, or by the time of the meeting, was sitting on the desk of all the board members for the Los Angeles, or commissioners, whatever they are. I think it's an airport commission. After that, it took more than 2 years for the commission to decide that long-distance shuttles would be allowed. And I can remember they were very creative. What the airport commission decided was if you had a permitted vehicle, it could continue to go there and pick up. But no company would be allowed to replace a vehicle or to add a vehicle. So as their number of vehicles got smaller, they got a deal with a Burger King, and they called it the BK transfer. And so you would be picked up by their vehicle, transferred to Burger King, which is a few blocks from LAX, go into another shuttle that would bring you home. And that shuttle, of course, could drop off because anybody can drop off. But it was quite a process there for a while. But I thought that the Sandlands handled it very, very creatively, and it kept the shuttle service going. At the end of that, the LA Airport Commission decided that there could be long-distance shuttles from within the LA Metropolitan District, they only had Super Shuttle and Prime Time, but from the other counties and Palmdale and San Diego, there could be long-distance shuttles, and they then grew the business because they could get more permits. It saddened me to think that this decision was made again by the Airport Commission, LA Airport Commission, and that the new company didn't take up the fight, but I guess there's more money in big buses than in shuttles. But I think that it's going to pose a problem come August 1st when Roadrunner is no longer operating a shuttle service to LAX. So that's my lamenting of the passing of Roadrunner shuttle to the
A lot of history there.
Los Angeles Airport.
Okay. Ms. Santangelo?
Okay, on June 29th, I attended the American Cancer Society Relay for Life. That was my first attendance at that event. I enjoyed being there. And that evening was our first concert in the park, and while I'm mentioning that, I want to commend our city staff and the Pleasant Valley Recreation and Park District, because I was there till the very end, and it was really fun. And I have heard nothing but really great comments about it ever since. People were dancing. It's really a lot of fun. So good job, everybody. And on July 2nd, I attended Streets and Transportation Committee. And July 4th, I was at Camarillo High School, and I agree, when I first got there, I thought it was a little slim on attendance, but by the time the fireworks got going, it was packed, and it was a really nice show. And I'm glad that everybody's safe from the earthquakes. My boys did not. It was really their first big earthquake, and they didn't feel the one on the 4th, but they did feel the one on that Friday evening, right? And I was actually on the road, but they both texted me at the exact same time going, oh my God, what do we do? So I took that as a time to teach them and educate them about what to do in an earthquake, because they thought it was great to just hang out in their bed at the bottom of our 3-story condo. It's like, no. So everybody take that as a signal at home to use it to get your supplies ready and talk to your family about what to do during an earthquake. And I just wanted to share this. It's not, what the heck. I went down to Tijuana on Saturday and volunteered with a group called the Refugee Health Alliance to help provide medical care to refugees that are in shelters in Tijuana. And it was quite an experience to meet people. I met families from Cameroon, from Haiti, from Colombia, Honduras, El Salvador. I met a woman who had 3 children who were born in Atlanta, and her 4th child was born in Mexico, and she was born in Mexico. So she was living literally in limbo. There are estimated 10,000 refugees in Tijuana right now. The number they are calling, and anybody who wants to apply for asylum goes and they essentially get assigned a number, but they don't officially apply for asylum. They get to come back and officially apply when their number is called. They are, I believe the numbers are in the low 2,000s that they've actually called right now. When I was there on Saturday the previous week, they had only called 30 people. So these people are literally living in limbo. And a few of the places that I went to were literally about half the size of a football field. The sides were corrugated metal, covered with just corrugated metal, kind of open to the air, and it was literally tent cities. Tent, 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 and that's where everybody slept, and they essentially just hung out there. One of the other shelters I was in was church-based, and a little nicer conditions. They had bunk beds to sleep in, but outside just hung out. So everybody was grateful. Everybody was kind. Everybody was trying to do their best. I got to use my Spanish, which I haven't used for a while. I can't talk anything except medical stuff in Spanish. But I had a number of mothers asking for vaccines for their children, and a number of pregnant women wanting their prenatal vitamins. So as a nurse, it's really refreshing to have people that are in such dire straits, but still asking for the things that they know are good for them, preventative health-wise, and good for their children. So I'm sharing that because I think it's important to get the real story of what's happening. We hear so much in the news. And so I just thought a first-hand account would be interesting for the community to hear. If you're interested in helping out, if you have medical skills or you want to translate, let me know. We're always looking for people. I'm going to be trying to go back probably about once a month. So that's all I have.
Mr. Moshe, do you want to continue?
Things attended Thursday, June 27th. I attended the Camarillo Chamber of Commerce ribbon cutting for Braxton's Kitchen. It's right down the street from us here on Carmen. That was great. I like breakfast cafes. I let everyone know how much I like breakfast and lunch cafes. Give them a whole story. I really enjoy that particular establishment, and along with the other ones in Camarillo. But it was nice. I could bring my dog to the patio. I always welcome new businesses, and this is run by 3 younger gentlemen, and they're just making a go of it. Part of their profits, they do donate to nonprofits that assist with dogs, or animals in general, but specifically dogs, cats. And I believe they're partnering with the shelter as well in some respects. Friday, June 28th, I attended the Rotary Club of Camarillo step-down dinner for Kathy Long. She was our outgoing president. Mr. Tremblay and I both belong to that club, so it was great. Kathy Long is our former county supervisor, so she had been president for this last year. I think she's done a terrific job. She was the president that welcomed me into the club. She's been just very humble, gracious, and very committed to the Rotary Club and their mission. So I think she's just done a terrific job. Saturday, June 29th, I stopped by the summer concert series just for a brief, just prior to the start, and then I poked my head in for only a brief moment during the concert. But I had date night with my wife, and I dared not interrupt or ruin date night. So I hope to attend the next one. But I spoke to several people who attended, and it seems like it was a real hit. People had a lot of fun. Some people, the most common comment I got was, "Please give us a space to dance. Please allow us to dance up by the stage." People really enjoyed it. I guess at one point there was no dancing, and then I guess dancing broke out, and everyone had a lot more fun. So I think PVRPD did a great job organizing that and advertising it. Thursday, July 4th, I enjoyed the fireworks show from afar. But I've heard complaints in the past here or there, not necessarily directed at, say, Camarillo High School, but sometimes from the fields or whatnot. I didn't hear a single complaint, even in light of the fact that there were some restricted, there were some restrictions this year based on the situation. I didn't hear not a single complaint from anyone. Nothing but positive things. I did enjoy the earthquake. After the 4th, I didn't feel the one on July 4th. I was working July 4th, standing next to one of our major machines, and so all I saw was some dust fall from the rafters and our lights swinging. But then that 7.1 definitely felt that, because I was running around the house like a madman trying to turn off the gas and water. My wife was wondering what the heck I was doing. So oddly enough, we were watching Stranger Things at the time, so it was just perfect. Tuesday, July 9th, that was last night. I attended the Camarillo Ranch Foundation. I got a little bit, I'll give you a little bit of detail on that. We met there in the Red Barn. Clearly, the council knows, as we've been informed previously, that Martin Shum, former board member, he resigned. Unfortunately, I really liked Martin. I think he brought a lot. He was a great mind. And I'm saddened to hear that he had resigned. Last night, Karen Prow also indicated that she is resigning. She's been on the board for, I think, 16. I think she said 16 years.
She was off for 2 years in the middle. And
then came back. As Charlotte had mentioned, Sandy Nuremberg, she sits on the board, has volunteered her time to serve as interim ranch manager. It was great to see Thomas Hayden as a new member there on the board. He got a warm welcome. I think his skill set, and I wasn't too familiar with his skill set prior to that meeting, but I think he's going to be a great addition to that board. And I think he himself and his skill set, he can bring a lot to the ranch. And to the extent we can get more people like that, I think it only emboldens and greater, better establishes the ranch going forward. As we know, David Reel, who we had appointed at this last meeting, ended up declining his appointment. So he will not, unfortunately, he will not be joining the board. The CRF did indicate that they are working on some sort of response to our initial proposal, and so I anticipate that they'll be coming back in short order. What I really liked about this meeting, I second Charlotte, or echo Charlotte's sentiment in that this was one of the best meetings yet. What made it terrific was I've never seen more people I don't know, from the public attend a CRF board meeting. And the feedback and the comments they gave were emboldening and very constructive. There was one gentleman lived in Camarillo, and as he said, and Charlotte and I think had an opportunity to speak to him afterwards, but he says, I just see so much opportunity. This is such a great asset. This is something that, he said, I grew up in this community, and I've recently moved back here. He's since traveled the world or whatnot, and he spoke to the fact that there's so many people he talks to in town, encounters in town, that still, one, never visited the ranch. Two, still don't know about the ranch. Many of them don't even know it exists. So there's definitely a lot of outreach, and upon him discovering the ranch, or maybe rediscovering the ranch upon returning back to Camarillo, he says this is a gem. There's so much opportunity here, and he'd thrown out some ideas, and I love the enthusiasm that he brought, I'm really hopeful that, and it was thrown out there as a suggestion, that he perhaps apply for appointment to the board if he wants to. But I think something like the more enthusiasm and ideas we can get, because I think I wholeheartedly agree that there is a lot of untapped opportunity there. That property is a gem, and besides it, and the asset that it is, the docents, and I'll speak to the docent lender briefly, but the docents, a docent who represented all the docents spoke on behalf of the docents. They had a very well-prepared letter, which we can definitely get a copy of and include hopefully in council mail or something, going over what the docents do, the services they provide, how they add value to the ranch, how they further, when it comes to the education and the celebration, to the ranch. The docents, outside of the property itself, the docents are the greatest asset out at that ranch. Regardless of what comes of the city and the CRF's negotiations, for me personally, the docents are something that must remain. Whatever emerges from that, they should have a home, and they should play a role. And they do a terrific job. I think I've said before, and I don't want to be too repetitive, but I've taken several tours myself. I'm learning something new upon every tour. My wife takes her third grade class there every fall. She enjoys it, even though it's her umpteenth time. And the kids really enjoy it, and they get a kick out of it, whether they're making butter or just getting to see the grounds and whatnot, and told the historical nature of that place. That is all I have about the CRF meeting. And then I had one comment. This is in regards to the 5G, and something. This is a pattern I'm kind of noticing, and staff can chime in if lend any credence to what I think is going on here. But we've gotten about, and this is coming in through council mail, but we've gotten about 30 emails in regards to 5G. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to look at the responses, and that they're very spam-like. In the nature of business I used to be involved in, they're almost dead-on spam in that I don't know any of the names. I've researched the names, people who are submitting these comments, and as far as I can tell, none of them live in Camarillo.
A few.
Oh yeah, I took about 13. I randomly selected 13, and none of them. I didn't get a positive hit back in some of my research because I was a little suspicious of these. They're all coming from that same IP address, which is the 172 block. Yeah, they're all from the same IP address. It's the 172 block IP it's not a public IP address. That's a private IP address. That is not something that you or I, when we're on the internet and doing things, we're on a public IP. City Hall here is on a public IP. So that IP is not associated with anything in Camarillo or even this region for that matter, for probably not this country. That was my suspicion. And then the email responses, the actual email addresses are clearly, you can look at those and they're very spam-like. And so this is kind of has a lot of the hallmarks of either a Russian or Eastern European spam campaign. So I say that because, there are certain issues where we are inbound on a lot of public comment and concern. And where that comment and concern is valid and real, I definitely want to take it and validate that. There's a lot around this that doesn't sit well with me and doesn't quite look right and requires a little bit of scratching the head. So I just wanted to throw it out there and just make sure that, just want to throw it out there. So that is all I have.
Mr. Tremblay?
Thanks. Let's see. Yesterday, I attended a meeting of the Clean Power Alliance Finance Committee. This is a little dated, but it's a thank you to Sean, who I believe attended the June 20th EDC board meeting in my place. So thank you for doing that. Kudos to Kathy Long for her, I'll echo what Sean said, for her great service to Rotary and our community. I got a very late email, which I was trying to resuscitate on my phone, and it has to do with Clean Power Alliance, and I just want to make a couple of announcements. One is that Clean Power Alliance will have a Ventura County workshop on its local programs, and as you know, there's been a real focus by Clean Power Alliance on a goal of empowering local jurisdictions to engage in clean energy programs on the local level. And Clean Power Alliance will have a Ventura County workshop on Thursday, July 25 from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. at the County of Ventura Satakoy building on Riverbank Drive in Ventura. I know my understanding is there are flyers in the library. I think I think the city is putting this information on its website hopefully by tomorrow, and I would ask staff to go ahead and make sure that it's on the website and on our Facebook page, and to encourage people to attend that local programs workshop. Secondly, Clean Power Alliance has an online survey that will be available until July 18. And if we can, if anyone is so inclined, I would encourage them, please, to complete the online survey, especially if they're unable to attend the workshop on the 25th. The survey is available in both English and Spanish. And that's it for me. Thank you.
All right. So let's see. Committees. Let's see. I did a VCOG administrative committee meeting on June 27th. I did give the opening message at the first concert in the park, and I thought it was really great, but I have to qualify that. I really like the steel drums. I think that is one of the coolest instruments ever invented. Yes, I really like that. And they were really good, and met all of the musicians, and they were absolutely thrilled to be in Camarillo. And I thanked them for being here, and they actually thanked me and all the residents for having them there, and they had a really, really good time. They really know how to entertain. It was really, really terrific. So I encourage everybody to go to the next concert at the park. It's going to be a good event. Attended a Streets and Trans on Tuesday, July 2nd. On July 4th, I did give an opening statement at the fireworks, and I thought they were really great. I know a lot of us have talked about this a little bit, but I especially liked, though, as I noticed that there was less bang and more color with them. I don't know if anybody else noticed that, but there was a lot of color, and it was less kind of bang, and I really appreciated that. And it was an interesting crowd. It was a late crowd, but they did show up in droves. And I have had a lot of really positive feedback on that. And the show was on time. Yay. That's a big thing. I said we're going to start at 9 o'clock, and by gosh, at 9 o'clock we did. So it's always good when the fireworks start when we say they're going to start. I did, on Monday, I did welcome the summer interns, and boy, did they get a lot of indoctrination about every department. And you talk about deer in the headlights, huh? Staff members that were there, our staff was really, really prepared for what they, at least in their minds, what they thought they should know. So at the end, when there was asked if there's any questions, there was no questions, and I could see it. Processing everything. But I don't know if staff saw this, but the smiles on their face, and they were really, really thrilled to get a job in the city of Camarillo. And boy, impressive, very impressive young people here. If our young people are like a lot of them, our country's in a really good shape. So that was really neat to see somebody really excited about their work. And I look forward at the end of the month to, see them again. And of course, come September with all of us here too, and see and talk to them a little bit about their experiences.
Wait till you see each of their videos at the end.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. I think that's going to be really, really, really great. I just want to give a very small comment, and it's going to be very brief, but there's been a lot of discussion in the community about the Camarillo Ranch Foundation Board, and I personally have never thought of it as us against them. This is a team. This is an asset to our community, and this asset will be preserved if for nothing less than the future of our residents along with our current residents. So with that, I don't have anything else. Does anybody else have anything else? I know we've got another closed session. We've got to follow up on a study session here. So with that, we will recess into those. Okay. You can do a little sidebar.
Thank you. I just wanted to get a clarification. Mr. Tremblay was
Are we still in session?
Going to the traffic division or traffic department?
Mr. Mayor, can I just clarify? I asked that the matter be referred to staff to provide a report to the City Council, or to alternatively provide a report to the Council's Streets and Transportation Committee. Thank you. Thank you.